Hey guys, how you doing? This is John Nobles with Let's Talk Freedom. Today we're going to be discussing changing the narrative, uh, and what that means is we're talking about, uh, we're talking about one of the topic that's been discussed for a while now, and it talks about black on black crime, and I'm not going to discuss it in a way probably most people do. um, but what I am going to do is kind of break down how we can change the narrative. Sorry, how we can change that narrative. Um, so let's talk about it. So there are some people who believe that black on black crime is a myth and doesn't exist. Um, well, I'm going to tell you this: it does exist, and it's not a myth. Now, however, there's white on white crime, there's black on black crime, there's Asian on Asian crime, so on, so forth. But what is very important to know is that the amount of the percentages. You have to look at the percentages, and this is why there's a problem because 89% of black people are killed by other black people. These are statistics. Um, that are true. These are true statistics. Blacks make up 13% of the population, yet 89% of black people are killed by other black people. Uh, and I have the facts right here. Blacks committed 52% of homicides between 1980 and 2008, despite composing only 13% of the population. Now, economist Thomas Sowell said, I hope I pronounced that right, said before the 1960s, most black children were raised in two-parent families. In 2013, over 72% of black people were born out of wedlock. So basically, what he and a lot of others believe, and this is true, that there were more two-parent homes around the before the 1960s. Um, so that is a very true statement actually. You know, in that now a lot of these families don't have their fathers in the home, and a lot of the fathers will say, well, I'm in my children's life, but we have to be honest with ourselves and admit that even if we're sorry in our children's lives, that it's still not the same. It's good, it's great, but it's not the same. And that there's a lot of men out there who still don't do right by their children. We're a lot of times when I see people discussing the children, it's all about the money, the money, the money, the money, which money is a factor. But the biggest factor is actually being in the child in your children's life, because that is how you're going to bring these black crime numbers down. Um, I myself, I grew up in. I'm from South Carolina in Columbia. I grew up. I spent most of my life in a neighborhood called Eastway Park, and I moved from Eastway Park to another neighborhood within that same vicinity called Starlight, and I moved from there, and I moved to another one in that vicinity called Atlas Road. These few neighborhoods, which along with other neighborhoods, make up an area we call 48, and in that area, it's it's the hood. It is what it is. And I'm not ashamed that came up there. Actually, very proud of where I come from because it made me who I am. But for a lot of people, that doesn't always have a positive impact. And for a while on me, it didn't have a positive impact. I went to jail. I got in fights. I had guns pulled on me. I had things happen to me, and me do things to other people that could have landed me in jail or had me get killed. And a lot of times when you're growing up in that type of environment, when you're poor, you have the mindset, honestly, that you don't care. You don't care because you feel like life threw you a bad hand. And a lot of times our parents, I grew up in a single parent home, and thankfully I had a mother who still taught to me. But a lot of parents in these days and times, a lot of women out here working 2 and 3 jobs to survive. So you're missing that dad or that other parent to help you co-parent, to have time to really talk to children. Then talk to children about making it out, what to do to make it out, the steps you need to take. And a lot of these children try to find a path on their own. And and I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of parents, even in two-parent homes, where the children just aren't taught correctly. We got to be honest about this. This is going to be a very honest conversation, because a lot of parents these days think that raising children is just about making sure that that child doesn't have to go to school looking like they had to go to school. So they want to make sure they got Jordans and the nicest clothes, and they're not teaching them any core values. They're not teaching them manners. They're not teaching them. You'll see where some of these kids, they act like they're grown already because nobody taught them respect. A lot of kids don't say yes ma'am and no ma'am anymore. They don't have those little things that go so far. When you get older, they don't teach it to them. They don't teach them that, hey, you're strong enough and you're smart enough to make it out of here. You just got to go through the process, and a lot of us, because we don't raise our children to understand going through the process, our children grow up thinking that things are supposed to come to us easy, and that's not the case. So when I look at these statistics, I take, because a lot of people they come up with all these, like I said, trying to say it's a myth and all this, but what these statistics show me, these right here, these statistics, what they show me is that a lot of this just goes back to our parenting, because a lot of us now, we want to get away from those old school values and old school ways of parenting. And I'm not even talking about whipping your child, but I'm talking about really sitting down and taking the time to make sure your children understand and know certain things, because kids absorb information in constantly at a high rate. And you want to make sure that the information that they're absorbing is going to have a positive impact on their life. So one of the things, that I feel like we should be instilling in our children, besides the manners and the values, is talking to them early about credit. Talking to them early about credit. Because if you even look at this, because again, this goes back to, and I'm gonna tell you how this ties into crime. Studies show that white people who earn less than $25,000 per year are likely to have a better credit score than blacks who earn between $65,000 and $75,000 per year. I can attest to some of this because by the time I started making around 60 something a year, I had bad credit and I had to fix my credit. So, and there are a lot of people that I know who make, a lot of people I know who make $90,000, $100,000 a year, and their credit is horrible. Where I know some of my white friends who don't make as much money as we do, who have way better credit than us. And you know what? It allows them to still have some of the same things we have, So talk to your children early. My son, I may pull him on a video one day, but my son can tell you what credit is. My daughter can tell you what credit is. They can tell you, they understand that they got to pay their bills on time, so they can have a history of that, so that their credit will be good. They understand these things, and when you get them out of that mindset, if they grow up and they have good credit, one, they won't feel like they got to get it in another way, because them trying to get it another way may cause them to go out there trying to rob people, or it may cause them to go out here and try to sell drugs, and then they have an issue with somebody in the street, and then things happen. A lot of people who don't have to live that type of life, we're not like for me, I've lived both sides of this life. When you're out in the street and you're selling drugs and stuff like that, there's conflict, because there's conflict over territories. There's conflict over people doing messy things behind your back. You are around people who aren't really for you. Whereas when you live the life I live now, there's only one or two people even in my circle, and I still don't hang out with them like that. My best friend is my wife, and my family is all that I'm around the majority of the time. I'm not out in the streets. I'm not out doing anything like that. So guess what? I'm not likely to be out committing a violent crime. You get what I'm saying? So you got to look at how these things happen and how these things occur. You know, but and another thing too, something that my mom did for me that I think helped me in the long run, because I have a past. I have a past where I did a lot of crazy things, and one day I'll go into all that with you. But one of the things my mom did for me was she made sure that me, my brother, and my sister were cultured and other things. So I grew up, knowing my history. My mother made sure we knew who people like the Nicholas brothers were, who were tap dancing sensations. Sammy Davis Jr. We watched. My mom took us to musicals, ballet. She took us to just all kinds of things that allowed us to be cultured. My mom took us to art galleries and stuff like that. Little things going on in our city locally. My mom made sure that we had culture. And that, even though it may not have seemed like it was resonating with me back then, not even to myself, it did as I got older, because I started to find those things interesting. As I got older, my mind began to change, and it's because she instilled that inside of me. In the Bible, it says, and I can't remember what scripture it is, but it says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from you. It never says that your child won't be bad. It never says that your child won't get in trouble, but it does say they won't depart from you. I did a lot of things in my childhood, but then when I began to get older, I began to make those changes because of the values and stuff that was put inside of me. And there was things I wish my mother would have done more with me. I wish my mom would have taught me more about credit and more about how that works, more about investing in the stock market and things of that nature. But she did make sure I was cultured. So that's another thing. Like a lot of times out here in my city, because I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, they'll say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Columbia." That's false. It's just that you only like to do certain things in Columbia. You only want to go to clubs. You only want to go to parties. You only want to see famous rap artists. Me personally, I like to go hear jazz musicians. I like to go listen to live music. I like to go to art museums. I like to go to different art things that's going on around in the city. I like going to food festivals, all kind of things. There are things to do that you can do with your family that'll help change their mindset, so they know that there's more out there than just the hood that they grow up in. That's what I'm circling all that back to. There's more out there than just the hood you grew up in. So we've got to start now with our children. We can't do too much about what's going on now. And now if we can change my hearts and minds, we can. But the thing is, let's start changing the generation that's coming up. Let's start working on them and changing them. Let's stop being lazy and take the time to be parents to our children. Men, whether you end up living in the home or not, take the time to go and be with your children. Be respectful to your baby moms in front of your children. Be respectful to them, period. But don't disrespect your mother, your baby's mom, in front of your children. Women, don't disrespect your baby's father in front of your children. That's what we got to be about. We got to stop, because this will stop us. When they grow up, then they're less likely to be out here killing each other. That's what we want. We want our children to outlive us, but they won't outlive us if we're not raising them the right way. If we're allowing them to think that being angry is cool all the time. Yeah, there's a time to fight. There's a time to be angry. It's in the Bible too. But guess what? It's not all the time. It's not all the time. We have to realize that a lot of us are very emotional. We're very emotional, and we react off emotion. That's why we're always ready to fight. We're always ready to shoot somebody, and always ready to resort to violence. Violence is always the last resort. It's not the first. It's always the last, and we got to make sure that our children know this. So let's start working on changing the narrative. And the only way we can do that is by first recognizing that there is a problem in our community, and we need to start working on changing it now. So Till next time, next video will be coming soon. If you like what we're talking about here, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.